Hi everyone, my name is Yannick and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be another one about Playwright for Java, and today I'll be talking about how to launch a browser to create a page that we can then use to test. For this demo, I will be doing some coding, so if you want to follow along but you do not have a project set up, please pause this video and check out my previous one about how to create a Playwright for Java project. I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below. So if we're using a test framework like Playwright, chances are we're testing a web application. To test a web app, we're going to need a browser so that we can navigate to the website and interact with it. The first step to creating the browser is to create a Playwright object. And this Playwright object provides methods that allow us to launch the Playwright driver process that we can then use to create a browser type object. And in Playwright, there are actually three types of browsers available to us. There's Chromium, aka Chrome, Firefox, and WebKit that we use to launch Safari. This browser type object has a launch method that we can then use to create a browser object. With this browser object, we can create a page that we will then use to test our web application. If we have multiple test cases, Playwright has a browser context object that we can utilize. This browser context allows us to execute each test in its own independent browser session. To do this, we could create individual browser contexts from the browser object, and then we can create a page from each browser context. With this page being inside its own context, we can go ahead and execute a single test in its own isolated session. Okay, so now that we have that bit of explanation out of the way, I'm gonna head back to my project and I'll do a demonstration of this. So inside my project, I'm going to create a JUnit test case file, and I am going to name that test login. All right, and I won't select any option, so I'll just click finish. And you'll notice right away that my package statement got added to this file automatically, and also the test class was created for me. So if you watch my previous video, you'll see that this is expected based on my project setup. So I will delete this line that imports JUnit because I don't need it right now. And then I'll also delete these lines for the test case. All right, so I am also going to change this from test and specify that I want everything to be imported because I will be using that. And then I'm also going to import Playwright. So the next thing I'm going to do is inside my test class, I'm going to start creating the variables that I'll need in order to launch my browser. So the first one that I'll create is a Playwright variable, and that's going to be a static variable, and the type is going to be Playwright, and I'm going to call that variable Playwright. The next one that I'm going to do is the browser type, and then the next one I'll be doing is the browser. And again, the type is browser type. And then the third one is browser. And that should be a capital B. So after I create these variables, I'm going to create two more. One is going to be for browser context, and the other one is going to be for page. These won't be static, but their type will be browser context for the first one. And I'll just name my variable browser context so that it's easy to read. And then the last variable will be page. All right, I'm saving my file. So now that we have these variables, we'll go ahead and create a method called create browser. And I want this create browser method to run before all my tests. So I'm going to add a tag called before all. And this tag is a JUnit tag. It basically specifies that wherever this tag, whichever method this tag is associated with, that method should be run before all tests are executed, and it will only run once. So this is going to be a static method. It's going to return void, and I'm naming it create browser. All right, and inside this method, I'm going to initialize my playwright variable. All right, so I'm creating this playwright object here, and then from this playwright object, I'm going to specify my browser type that I want to use. So the browser type that I'll be using is Chromium. And finally, I want to create a browser instance within this method as well. And I'm calling the launch method from my browser type object. Okay, so next I'll go ahead and create an after hook. I want to design my suite such that after all tests are executed, I want to close the playwright object as a cleanup step. So I'll add that after hook, and I'll just add the cleanup method inside it. And this is going to be after all tests. And this is going to be another static method, and I'll just call it close playwright. And in here, I'll call the playwright.close method. Hey guys, I just wanted to pause real quickly and say, in addition to closing Playwright, the Playwright.close method will close all browsers that were created from this instance of Playwright. So for this test suite that I'm creating, I also want to have multiple test cases, and I want each test to have its own isolated browser session. And to achieve that, I'll use a before each hook, and inside that hook, I'll create a browser context. And this method won't be a static method. So to create this browser context, I'm going to call the new context method from the browser object. And this browser object right here is the same as the browser object that we initialized up here. Inside this before each, I also want to create my page that I'll be interacting with. And to create that page, we're going to use this browser context there. And from this browser context object, we are going to call the new page method. Okay, so now I have my browser that's created. I have a context that's created. I create a page from each context. And after all this, Again, I want to design my test such that after each test is executed, I will be closing the browser context, and closing that browser context will automatically close the page. And this again will not be a static method. Okay, so now I have all the code that I need to actually launch my browser. So now I'll just add a couple of tests in this test file just to verify that the browser is in fact launching and that this code is correct. So first I'll add a tag called test so that JUnit can know that these are in fact my test methods. And I'll just name this should navigate. And inside this, I'm just going to put like a page.navigate function. And the website that I'll be navigating to is this SaaS demo website. It's a website that we can practice test automation on. So I'm only going to be navigating to it. That's all I need just to verify that the browser is launching. And I'll copy this, put it down here, and just add like a 2, just so the name of the function can be different. I'll save that. And now I'll right click on the name of my test file over here in the project, and then I'll hover on run as and click JUnit test. And then if we come over here on this JUnit tab, we should see the test being executed. And once they execute, you'll notice that we did not actually see a browser. We only see the results that the test passed. And that's because by default, Playwright runs in headless mode. If you watch my previous video, you'll see that I mentioned this. So if I want my test to run in headed mode instead of headless mode, what I need to do is to specify that as a launch option inside my launch method here. So I'll go to the Playwright docs and I'll copy this bit of code right here where the launch option is being specified as set headless to equal false. And then I'll come back to my launch method here, and then I'll just paste that inside my method as a parameter. And I'll save this file. And now I'll just go ahead and rerun my test. So I'll right click on it again, go to run as, select JUnit. And I'll just wait on my execution to be completed. So we should see the browser popping up, and we'll just wait for that to happen again. All right, so our browsers popped up as expected. And so, yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all we need to do to create our browser context and then create our pages from that context and then execute whatever tests we need to execute on that page. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.